We begin tonight, though, with President Obama and Democrats in Congress apparently on the march toward chalking up their second big legislative win in as many months. Tomorrow it will be 1 month since President Obama put pen to paper and signed into law the most sweeping changes to this country's health system in nearly a century. Now the most sweeping changes to this country's financial system since the Great Depression and the great deregulation of the 80s and 90s appear to be in the offing as well.
We need to enact a set of updated, common sense rules to ensure accountability on Wall Street and to protect consumers in our financial system. I'm here today specifically when I speak to the titans of industry here, because I want to urge you to join us instead of fighting us in this effort.
Join us instead of fighting us. Mr. Obama, as you heard, directing that message to Wall Street executives in attendance today in his speech in New York City at Cooper Union. But he might as well have been talking right to congressional Republicans when he said that. As with the health reform battle of the last year, and frankly everything that's been brought up in this Congress, Republicans right now are blocking this. They're even blocking starting debate on Wall Street reform. They have a standing filibuster on even talking about Wall Street reform. But unlike the health reform fight, President Obama and the Democrats have apparently decided to not go along with the delaying tactics this time. Those delaying tactics that almost allowed Republicans to kill health reform. And also unlike health reform, Democrats apparently have decided to take a rapid response approach to misinformation about what's actually in the bill. They're not going to get death paneled this time around.
What's not legitimate is to suggest that somehow the legislation being proposed is going to encourage future taxpayer bailouts, as some have claimed. That makes for a good soundbite, but it's not factually accurate. It is not true. A vote for reform is a vote to put a stop to taxpayer-funded bailouts. That's the truth. End of story. And nobody should be fooled in this debate.
That's the truth. End of story. Just 10 minutes before President Obama attempted to close the book on that whole permanent bailout claim, there was the top Republican in the House, John Boehner, rolling that very same talking point out again for the umpteenth time.
While the president says he wants to reform Wall Street, the bill that we have in front of us will actually provide permanent bailouts for Wall Street and enshrine too big to fail.
Permanent bailouts. And if that's not over the top, not true enough for you, Mr. Boehner then doubled down.
This is not what the American people want. They want sensible reforms that will fix the problem. They don't want a government takeover of the entire private sector.
Not only is Wall Street reform a permanent bailout, it's also a government takeover of the entire private sector. You over there with the hot dog cart, that hot dog cart now belongs to the Department of the Interior. Move it. The entire private sector? Republicans tried the strategy of totally over-the-top, debunkable, and debunked, but nevertheless repeated criticism when they tried to stop health reform. They tried that. That was their strategy against health reform, and you might remember they lost. Now they're trying that same strategy with Wall Street reform, too. And this time around, Democrats are reacting differently. They are apparently more than happy to call Republicans out on it. Just minutes after President Obama's New York speech today, Senate Democrats convened a strange press conference. A strange press conference on Wall Street reform. That was strange because at their press conference, they showed video. They showed video presentations of Republicans saying things that aren't true about Wall Street reform. They actually played tape.
This bill not only allows for taxpayer-funded bailouts for Wall Street banks, it actually institutionalizes them. We've taken a good look at the Dodd bill that came out of the Banking Committee on a party line vote, and one thing you can say for sure about it, it provides for an endless taxpayer bailout of Wall Street banks. If you look at it carefully, it will lead to endless taxpayer bailouts of Wall Street banks.
So if you listen to this comment by the minority leader of the United States Senate, you wonder if he's read the bill.
On the health care bill, we allowed too many lies to get out there without rebuttal because we thought they were so obviously untrue. But we've learned our lesson. And the minute these things come out of the mouths of some of our Republican colleagues, we rebut them. And we rebut them again and again. And fortunately, these lies are not taking hold.
No one knows exactly what's going to happen in November's elections. Historically speaking, Democrats should expect to lose some seats. Democrats appear, however, to have decided that good policy is good politics. They didn't just decide they're going to rebut Republican criticisms behind closed doors at their meetings. They held a press conference to say they're going to do this. They want to run publicly and emphatically on fighting the Republicans, on not delaying stuff that needs to get done, and on getting stuff done.
No matter how hard you try to distort and distract this debate, Wall Street reform is coming. No matter how many secret meetings you hold with Wall Street lobbyists, we know we answer to the American people. And no matter how long you try to delay the inevitable, we'll never let a crisis like this happen again.
The first vote on Wall Street reform in the Senate is already scheduled. At 5 p.m. on Monday, Democrats will bring Wall Street reform to the floor. It will be a motion to break the Republican filibuster and proceed to debate on the bill, and it will be the first real test of the supposedly unified Republican opposition to reforming Wall Street. If Wall Street reform does get stopped, and I don't think it does get stopped, if it actually goes ahead, if they are able to stop Wall Street reform, it will not be because of the Democrats going along with the Republican delay strategy like they did on health care. If Republicans are going to be able to stop Wall Street reform, they're not going to be able to use the same suite of tactics that they used to stop it with health care. Joining us now is Chris Hayes, Washington editor for The Nation magazine. Chris, thanks very much for joining us again. Good to see you.
Great to be here, Rachel.
Where are your glasses?
I left them in my bathroom. And I realized when I got in the car that I didn't have them. So you're out there somewhere.
Can you not see distance, or can you not see things close up?
I cannot see distance, but I'm quite aware there's a camera somewhere off in the horizon.
If I'm trying to do anything subtle, I'll emphasize it a lot so you can tell
perfect.
what it is that I'm doing. Chris. Okay. All right. The first vote on Wall Street reform is on Monday. I understand not giving in to delay tactics and just pushing ahead, right? That said, this is an issue that is good politics for Democrats from a political standpoint. Is there actually a case to be made that they shouldn't rush ahead, that they should draw this fight out all summer?
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I think the timeline is such, and the substantive policy changes are important enough that they need to get it done, right? And I think they think politically an accomplishment is better than something that doesn't get accomplished and is blocked. But I think you raise a good point. I think the other subtext that's really important to note here is that it's not entirely clear to me that everyone in the Democratic caucus is on board. And I think that's part of what you're seeing is a little bit of using the Republicans as the kind of scapegoat for rallying the votes internal to the caucus. So I'm not quite sure they would necessarily be able to get the votes even if they plunged ahead.
And who do you think are potentially problematic Democratic votes?
Well, it's sort of the usual suspects. I mean, there's been rumblings about Nelson out of Nebraska. That's the only name that I've heard, but I've also heard whisperings of people that I've been talking to in the Hill that there's a lot of concern about the derivative legislation that came out yesterday because it's actually really hard, and we're going to see whether it's going to survive into the final bill. So I think that setting up this conflict is productive and useful for Dodd and the leadership because it's allowing them to kind of rally the troops.
John Boehner, Chris, rolled out this new talking point today that Wall Street reform represents, he said, a government takeover of the entire private sector. What is
this is a government issue tie, just so everyone knows. I'm trying to prepare myself for the government takeover of the entire private sector. I stood online for this. No, I mean, look, I literally think this is what happened. I think John Boehner had one of those moments where his brain blanked, and then he reached into some sort of like lizard brain part of Republican talking points, where everything is a government takeover of everything else when the Democrats do it. That's what came out. But look, this is the same. This is, and Rick Perlstein will be on later, and he can walk you through the august history of this fear of government takeover and encroachment by the state and socialism, et cetera, et cetera. I think if they can't convince people of this super disingenuous claim that this institutionalizes bailouts, Boehner was previewing the next claim, which